Yes, joining us in studio now, a police officer for many years in New York City, the Bronx particularly, and now the host/subject of the show Street Justice, the Bronx on Investigation Discovery. Ralph Friedman joins the show. Hey, Ralph.
How you doing, guys?
Good. Maybe you can get up on that mic there. And we were introduced to you by our buddy Bill over here, listens to the show all the time. Bill, welcome into the studio. So, Ralph, tell us a little bit about this TV show. It launched on Discovery Channel, and they gave you a test. Tell us first about the TV show.
Well, it's on Investigation Discovery, and it's going to be on starting November 30th, 10 p.m. on Thursdays, and it profiles some of my cases, some of the highlights of my career. And
you started on the job in 1975, you said?
No, I started, actually, I came on the police in 1968 as a trainee.
Oh, okay.
For 2 years. Then I was appointed in February of 1970. And I went to the South Bronx precinct known as Fort Apache, the 41st precinct.
Okay. And why did they come to you and said we gotta hear your stories?
Well, there was some articles printed about me. I was in the newspapers quite a few times, and a producer happened to be reading about me, and she thought it would be a great idea to do the show. So she brought it to her bosses, and they liked the idea, and they called me in.
That's cool. So you've been the subject of it. How did it go? When did you start shooting this?
We started from scratch, I'd say, about 2.5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was also the same time that I started my book. I have a book out called Street Warrior by St. Martin Press also, which is available now on Amazon.com. But we started both projects at the same time about 2.5 years ago.
Shooting these TV shows is boring, isn't it?
No,
you sit around a lot.
Now, were you a street cop? Were you a detective? Were you a street cop?
I started off as like a little police officers do, as a uniform officer, and after about 18 months or so, I went into plain clothes.
Okay.
In the 41st precinct, called the Anti-Crime Unit, the 41st Precinct Anti-Crime Unit, which is plain clothes unit. You're not a detective yet, but you're doing like detective work, but you're a plain clothes, and you blend into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We worked in milk trucks, taxi cabs, Con Ed trucks, worked on construction sites, just to blend in and try to apprehend robbers and criminals in progress. In this way, we would stop the crime and also be able to testify. So, we were more apt at testifying than a civilian would be, and we'd be able to put away these violent criminals.
What year did you retire?
I retired in 1984.
1984, but is my understanding the job has never left you. Bill has told me some stories that you just can't give up being a cop. You still want a little piece of the action.
Well, I still pull over to help officers if I see troopers or officers making a car stop. I always slow down or stop if they need a backup or anything.
Yeah.
It's just in me. I can't help that.
So is your life on the street just like Law and Order?
No,
I didn't think so.
That's a TV show.
That's what I thought. I just want to hear you.
It was a real deal.
Now, you said you retired, 83?
1984.
1984.
I got hurt in 83. In August 1st of 83, I got hurt pretty bad, and I wasn't able to go back to work. I got officially retired January of 84.
So late 70s, early 80s is when crack cocaine really took its hold on the Bronx,
Crack really started right after I left.
Okay.
I didn't see any of that, the crack era. When I worked in the South Bronx, it was heroin. That's all I saw. When I got promoted to detective in 1975 and went up to the North Bronx, then I saw some other drugs. But all we dealt with in the early 70s was heroin. That's all you saw was junkies on the street, nodding out, stuff. And then they came into methadone, which was the same thing.
Right, to wean them off of it.
Yeah, but it was just as bad.
Right. Ralph Friedman, Street Justice, The Bronx is the name of the show on Investigation Discovery. What is your most high-profile case, would you say?
I had a lot of high-profile cases, but something that comes to mind was a burglary run I went on with my partner. It wasn't my regular partner. My partner was off that day, and I came back from court around 12 noon. And the guy I wound up working with, he was in court also, and he came back, and the boss put us together. So we went out on patrol, and we were in plain clothes. We were in the 41st Anti-Crime, and his name was Cal Unga. We went out in his car, and we had a portable radio, which we started using. They didn't have that when we first came on, but we had the portable now, and we heard a burglary run. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But we normally don't respond to 9/11 calls, but we picked it up as a backup because in the 41st Precinct or any of the precincts in the South Bronx, it was a tough area, and you try to back up your brother officers. So we picked it up, and the other radio car picked it up, and we responded. We got there first, and we started to go up the stairs. We went into the building because they said there was a girl screaming for help. So now we thought it was a burglary where the occupant was home. So we went upstairs, and we got up to the top floor, and we saw the door was broken into. It was open about 5 or 6 inches, and the wood was splintered around the door lock. And then we heard a girl screaming. So at that point, we decided we weren't going to wait for the original responding unit, and that we would go in. We didn't even say anything to each other, but we knew how we both react. So we went in side by side. It was pitch black in there, even though it was 2 in the afternoon. And they had curtains and sheets over the windows, and we couldn't see anything, but we heard a girl screaming in the rear. So we started to work our way in, and you first go in, you're entering a large, like, living room. Then there was a short hallway that went straight back to a bathroom and a door on the right, which we couldn't really see at the time, but we were feeling our way and listening to her screams. And when we got near the rear door, about 3.5 feet away, a guy jumped out, and we couldn't even see him really, but he just opened fire on us from 3 feet away, and it was in a little hallway. And we started seeing his muzzle flash, and that's what we fired at. We returned fire, both of us, and I saw my partner get hit right away. And this little hallway was really got lit up by 3 of us firing. We fired like 18 rounds. Between the 3 of us.
Right.
And the bullets are all ricocheting. So, I can't even tell you how many bullets were going whizzing by us.
Right.
And I hear them going by my head. I see my partner go down, and he's emptying his gun as he goes down. And at that point, the guy tries to rush past me. And I just reach out and grab him by his trap, by his shoulder. And he didn't have a shirt on. He was shirtless. And I grabbed his skin, I held on to it, and he still had the gun in his hand trying to get through me, and I had my gun pressed up against his chest. It was my last round, and I fired it, and I killed him right there.
Wow.
Then I rushed to my partner's aid, and it was in the winter, so we had heavy coats on. We had those army jackets on, field jackets, and that was containing a lot of the blood that he was losing. But I could see he was in a bad state. I picked up the radio, and I called for assistance, but I already knew they were responding already from the original burglary run, because it seemed like there was like 100 guys there, like within 10 seconds. And we made a call that we were going to pick him up and carry him down the flight because we couldn't wait for an ambulance or a stretcher. So we got him down to a radio car, and we were going to transport him, and they already notified highway units and precincts to close off all streets. So they had a clear path like a racetrack. But what we didn't figure on was when we got him into the car, the street, like if you ever saw where in New York City or any major city, when there's a shooting, especially of a police officer, a lot of cars respond, and they jam up the whole street. And the drivers are all out of the cars. So now we had this problem that they couldn't really get out. So the car that he was in had to start hitting cars to bump them out of the way.
Wow.
And it was just a frantic, guys were racing to their cars, and the radio car with him in it was bumping into cars and pumping them out of the way.
Sounds like a war zone.
That's how it was.
Did he make it?
Wow. And he made it to the hospital, and he went right into surgery, obviously. But he took 72 pints of blood in 3 hours.
72 pints.
72 pints. It's a medical record. And just to give you an idea, your body only holds like, I think, 7 or 8 pints. So that while they're operating on him, they're pumping blood into him. It's just flowing out on the floors. And he survived. He took 1 bullet to the lower part of the heart, a little sac that holds fluid under the heart, and he survived. These doctors were amazing. They all got awards from the commissioner and the mayor, and they saved his life.
Let's come back in just a couple minutes because we're running out of time. I didn't want to cut you off at the end of that story.
No,
Ralph Friedman, Street Justice, the Bronx, Investigation Discovery in studio, and we'll come back in just a couple minutes.
All righty. It's Ethan and Lou here at I-95.
Are you tired of